Welcome everyone to another CTC software webinar. My name is Chris Bircher, Director of Technical Services here at CTC, and today we are going to go over a tool from the BIM batch suite called Plotter and Exporter. Before we begin though, I want to encourage everyone to ask questions using the questions panel at any time during the webinar today. I will do my best to answer those as we go, but if I don't get to them or if I miss it, I will make sure to take time at the end to answer any and all remaining questions at that time. This webinar is also being recorded and will be made available on our YouTube channel shortly after the presentation has concluded. With that said, let's get going. So, as many of you may be aware, within the Revit environment, there isn't a whole lot of flexibility or control within the batch exporting features, right? There's a couple of add-ins that are available that allow you to kind of export the file or export all the sheets or, all the views. But what if you wanted to do your PDFs and your DWGs and your FBX files and MicroStation or DXF to the printer all at the same time? Forget about it. Natively in Revit, that's not going to happen, and then it becomes a very manual process. And on print day, that's a lot of time spent just to get files printed out, models prepped for exports, and doing all these various things. So today we're going to cover how the Plotter and Exporter utility from the BIM batch suite can assist you with this effort and how to set it up so that it can run on multiple projects and overnight. So today I'm going to show you where everything is, show you where the tool is located, do a quick little navigation of the UI, and we're going to configure a couple of runs, get things set up, show you how to select various views and sheets, and then kick out a few exports and how to schedule things, and make sure that you guys understand exactly how the tool is intended to work in a couple of different formats and scenarios. So, yeah, here we go. Live demo. Fingers crossed. Anyway, so on the CTC Productivity tab, we have our BIM batch suite, the purple shaded tools over here, and Plotter Exporter will be the first one in the dark shaded purple colors here. And when you open it up for the very first time, you're going to see the window, and it will likely look like this. It's blank because we don't have any settings, right? And that's totally fine. You can load settings when you have them, and I'll show you how to set that up. So the way the left side here is all the views and sheets in the project, and if you have if it's becoming difficult to find certain things, we can set it up to use the project browser sorting schema that you're using. So if you have all of your views sorted in a particular fashion, we can try to accommodate that, make it easier to find a few things. If not, if it's easy enough just to look at it this way, so be it. No big deal. And all the views in the model are listed here, exactly how they are shown in your Revit project browser. And the way it works is you drag everything over to the right side, which is the selected jobs, effectively, right? The PDF export, the printer set, the Navisworks, the FBX, the MicroStation, DXF, so on. And to get that populated, that all happens with the Add Row button, okay? In Add Row, you can see all the different printing / exporting options that you have at your disposal. I'm going to start with PDF. It creates its first line item with nothing attached to it yet. So if there's anything specific that I want to bring across, I can do that now, or I can set up how I want my PDF job to print or to be created first, and then come back and adjust how it's going to go. Either way, it does not matter. I am going to set my PDF print up first. So I'm going to click this little plus sign here. It's going to open up my PDF export settings. And you just fill out the form as you need to. So you pick what PDF printers you want to use. It's looking at, it's looking at system printers so that are available in Revit effectively. So any of your PDFs will work that you have, free or paid. And then it's going to also scan the Revit file to pull up what print setup file sessions you've got set up here. So, you know, if you've configured various settings for various paper sizes inside of Revit, Plotter Exporter will see that and allow you to choose those as well. So I'm going to do my full size set right now. We'll do my E1. I'm going to pick my folder where the output will go. I'll just do it right here in my temp folder. And then you have the option to choose how the folders are being created with date and time. Do I want separate files or one single PDF? Depending on which option you choose, your controls down here kind of in the bottom half are going to change. So if I do a combined, I only get project info for the file name options because Revit, first of all, can't compute what the sheet name is and give that to the file name, right? So you get project level information. If you do a separate file, you now have the option to specify sheet info or view info depending on what you're working with, right? And this is true with a number of different areas. You might have some options that will control what your naming conventions will be. If I do individual files here, I can either choose from views or from sheets, and each one will have its own naming convention depending on what it's selected. I'm gonna only bring over across my sheets. So in this case, I only need sheet name or sheet number and sheet name. And I like throwing, just for the example, some custom text onto the end of it, which then shows in a little preview down here so you can see what the output will become. And I should add, we had a question come up, so I'm going to answer it now. The question was, do those print settings also set the settings like not printing views, not on sheets? So this takes care of, these print settings here take care of the, it's not the sheet set. It's only the printer settings in this case. So what PDF, like what the paper size is going to be, and is it color or raster or black lines? So that sort of thing. Anything else, like if it would all be part of what you physically add to the list of things to export or things to print. So yeah, so here back to this, I like my name, I'm good with that. I'm gonna click OK and keep going. If I want, I can append the date and timestamp here to the end and keep on moving. So now I need to specify what, in this case, what sheets do I want to include on this? So there's a couple of different ways to do that. There's the easy, well, I guess it's all easy, but one easy way is to simply press and drag what you want. So I can select that, press and drag it, and let go on that set. And it will add all those to the over here. And then I can come back, and I had a few that were unnamed, so I don't want to print those. And then I can grab the remainder and do something like that. An option. Another option is to create a wildcard. And I'll do that in my next example. So one of the things that we can do here that was a request made a while back was to do multiple sets of the same output type, right? So multiple PDF sets or multiple DWG exports with different settings. So this one up here at the top is my full size set, right? I want all my architectural sheets to go out at this set. The next one will be like a half size. And maybe that is also all the sheets or all the architectural sheets or mechanical or whatever. But I want it half size for whatever reason. Maybe it's just a quick little page turn, and the full size set is for a submission of sorts. But oftentimes you do want both. And maybe there's a different selection. One, maybe you have a permit set going, and there's certain sheets that need to go to the permit set. Maybe the page turn needs to be a full complete set. And maybe there's other things to it. In this case, I'm going to have this one use a wildcard to get me all the sheets. Now, you can configure custom wildcards if you want over here on the wildcard search tab here. And there's already a couple already built in. One's called All Views or Architectural Views starting with ARC or MEC or Struck or All Sheets or Sheets starting with A. Well, maybe if I had other things going on here, maybe I just want to make my own custom one here. Let's say maybe I want all sheets starting with A1. And whatever else comes after that, comes after that. And you can do that, and there you have it. And then in your description, you would call it all sheets starting with, I said stating, I meant starting with A1. And now that's all I'm going to get. Which is great. And if now I can press and drag that over here as well. And that's what, if I wanted to, I could remove the top one. And now set 2 here is only going to give me sheets that started with A1, which I believe is just a handful. But then I can come back here and change the settings up to be something completely different. So instead of doing the E1, I can grab my 11 by 17 set. And this time I'll do 2 bits of custom text and half size, or whatever the case may be, okay? You got a few options. Oh, I forgot to pick my folder. Okay, well, let's do that same folder from before, PE out. Thank you. All right. I should also add that with these filters, or I'm sorry, with these wildcard searches, you do have filter options down here at below to get a little bit more dialed in as to what is going to be included within this wildcard search. So you pretty much any, in this case, because I grabbed sheets, any sheet parameter value that's in the list here can be used within this to weed things out if necessary. And that includes custom parameters that I've created. So this is a created by CTC parameter, not native to Revit. You can go ahead and add that in here or pick a sheet discipline or an issue date. Maybe you want to, maybe you're using this parameter and you want to get things that only have the latest issue date for revision purposes or whatnot, right? Go for it. And it says contains this or equals a certain date, right? Go for it. Now, whatever sheet that is or sheets are there, that's what I'm going to get in this wildcard. And I can call it as such. So I can, in this case, say all sheets, search for all sheets, and then use that filter down here at the bottom. We're good, should be good to go. And if you're doing it with views, just to show you, if I make another wildcard for the views, I get, it's the same concept here. So if I just, let me just edit this one here for you. Same idea, search by view parameter values. So I get the option for doing something similar. I get a couple more, you know, when you're searching for views, you can pick what type of view to filter, to search through, or disciplines. Don't. Yeah. And if you want revision specifics, there are a couple of checkboxes here to pull from that if necessary. But same thing, you got a list of all the view filters or view properties to include as a filter. Now, so I've got sheets here, I've got sheets here, different PDF settings, and now maybe I want to add my Navisworks out. And in this case, I have a couple of views set up specifically for this over here. And in this case, you know, you can either build out the views specific, like with the Navis stuff, or you can just export the 3D view and call it a day. It's, you know, it's entire, and whatever is in the 3D view is what's being exported, right? Just like it would be normally. And it's also very important to note that if the Navisworks exporter is not installed or enabled on that machine, you're not going to get your Navisworks exports. And that, just want to point that out because it happens and it trips me up on occasion. So make sure that you have your Navis exporters enabled on the machine, because I believe it still comes with the installer. You just got to make sure you do it. You say okay. But then if you want, you can do a DWG, and with DWGs, the same idea. I don't like doing everything on this one, so I'm just going to grab a couple of floor plans. And then with your settings, you know, oftentimes if you're exporting to AutoCAD or something like that, you've kind of already got the settings already predefined in your project. Again, make sure that you specify that settings file that you're using. And if it's not in the current project, make sure you use the transfer project standards to get it in. And then now at the same, and then we get to the same naming rules here. Just like we did with the PDFs, it's the same here. Go ahead and pick which one you want and how you want it labeled. In this case, I personally don't like including the file name, but I do like to know what type of view it is and the name _CTC. Kind of my jam these days. And then, yeah. So, and then I don't like the PCP files. I don't use them. So we have a delete option here if you need to. Okay, I'm good with this. I'm happy. We did some manual setup. We did some wildcard setup. So now there's a couple of different options here at this point. I can hit run now, and this will run on the files that you have open, whether it's only the current project, or if you have multiple projects open. You get to choose which of those files can get exported, and it'll work as long as it's got, you know, the settings apply to those files. The other option is and this is the option that we all care about the most, is you can schedule this to run at any time that the machine is available. So what you want to do is save your settings. And let's see, I'm going to do ARC, PDF, full half, DWG, and what was the other one? And Navis. Okay, so that's just what I'm going to call it. So you may have, as you get going with this, it may make sense to have a base starting point for all projects, and then save the settings specific to that Revit, to that project file, because things change. Or just have one, and that just applies to everything. And hopefully your naming conventions for the views and the sheets and things that you're trying to output don't change. All right, so now that I've got those saved, I can now schedule the job. So from the scheduler, this is just effectively calling up the Windows task scheduler built in to into your Windows, and you have the option now to create a new setup. So we're effectively, at this point, we've given you some custom dialogues here, but really we're just taking advantage of what Microsoft has already given us. So let's see, CTC office building. Whether it's, and then I'm going to do this on a weekly session, and I like running mine overnight. So we'll do 9 p.m. every Thursday, because then I can review it on Fridays. And this, run it as frequently or as infrequently as you want. The whole point is to make this kind of hands-free. So all you have to do is know when to review the output files. Then what we do down here at the bottom is now we set up the job. So I have to add the config file and then pick which Revit files to put in there. My config file, I saved to my settings folder back here. And here it is. I can add that. Then I can pick my Revit files. Now there's a couple of different ways to grab your Revit file. You can simply hit add files and go browse the directory, browse the network, and pick the file wherever it may be. Or you can browse to your BIM 360. So and this is one of the newer features. And what this does, I have to log in. And what it does is it's going to prompt you to log in if you've got the connection established. And it'll prompt you for your Autodesk credentials. You sign in and you click allow, and that's it. Then you can close the window. And then you'll have access to all the projects that you have at your disposal. So now I can go grab the, browse to my hub and pick my project. If you have been, if you're invited to work with other firms on projects with them, we need to make sure that we have connection to their hubs to configure a few things. So you want to make sure that they also have access, and that just helps keep things moving. And now I want to, which one did I did this office building? So I'm going to grab my 2023 project here, and I'm going to grab this file. Now, because I've got more than one 2023 project, I'm also going to go grab this guy over here. And come on, there we go, and hit OK. Now, they're both architectural models. I've got my set configured specifically for an architectural project. So I can effectively grab as many of those files as I want and run them through the same setup. And they will run consecutively. So whichever is in the first in the list will run first. And then once that job is done, it will move on to the next one. And when that job is done, it will move on to the next one. So if you do have 15 different projects going at any given time, you can update your scheduled task list and add those files. Or when projects are finished, remove those files. If the output's always the same, you're always asking for the same PDF set or the same DWG exports, you don't have to change anything. But as projects evolve and as view names change and things update, you might need more unique settings files for certain projects. That's fine. Go ahead and duplicate what you have and just keep on moving. Now, when I hit OK, it's going to run now tonight at 9 o'clock and kick out everything that I've done. I can also change those settings and hit run now. It'll kick it all out and do the thing. One of the things that I want to point out before I go and show you kind of what this output will look like and wrap things up. When you open the scheduler, there's a pop-up for the scheduled task editing instructions. I do recommend you run through this because the very first note is very important. The computer must be awake, right? It's got to be on, and you got to be logged in. Don't log off, don't sign out. You can lock it, but technically, if the machine isn't accessible via, say, remote desktop, this process isn't going to wake it up. So so treat it like that. So I believe if your machine's asleep, you can't remote into it, but if it's locked, you can, and that'll be okay. So it kind of all depends on what your power settings are set to and kind of how you manage that, especially if you're dealing with laptops, and desktops have them too. But I do suggest reading through this, and then you want to also make sure that a Revit license is associated to that machine, as well as the account that's set up and logged in also needs to have access to BIM 360 if that's what you're using, or ACC. You want to make sure that that's all tied together. And effectively, if you have it on like a kind of a headless machine or a processing type machine, remote into it or log into it, get everything set up accordingly. Make sure Revit's got a license and someone's logged into it. Make sure it's logged, you've set it up and it had access to your cloud projects. That way it should just run then when told to. But there is a little bit of pre-work to do. So it's not 10 pages of notes here, just a couple of points to point out to make sure you guys read it at least once. And then there's a do not show me again, so you don't ever have to read it again. It's just good to read it one time. So then for the output, based off what I told it to do, this is what we're gonna get. In my temp folder, I've got my PE out set up, and I have my jobs listed out in the order in which I set them up, right? And I've been doing this periodically. In this particular sheet, I got my 2. In this one, I got all sheets, okay? And my little FBX file. So it'll, depending on what settings file you used and what you were trying to do at that time, it's all gonna come out, and it's gonna be a dated folder in my case, because that's what I told it to do, with date and time, which I do recommend you do if you're gonna run multiple projects in the same session. That way everything's consolidated, it's grouped nicely, easy peasy. And then they can all go into the same folder where you can then pull them out if you want and move them to the project location, or turn around and put the PDF files back up to BIM 360 for transmitting to other team members at that time. And I think there was one last thing that I wanted to point out. Yeah, in the options here, we have a couple of extra things that we can make available. So for example, first thing is the configuration file. So my settings, right? So I went through this process, I built my settings, I saved it, and then I used those settings to set up my scheduled job. Well, if you're gonna use the same settings every time, you can map that here so that that's just how it starts. And when you go to your next scheduled task, then create the next one, it's gonna use that, which is great. Saves you the hassle of having to go find it every single time. Secondly, we have you could all these wildcards. These can all be saved to an external location. So for whatever reason, if multiple users need to access it at the same time and are configuring jobs, and we want to make sure that everyone has access to the same filtering techniques, we can store that wildcard library, in a sense, on the network somewhere and point everyone to it. Or we can just make sure that those wildcard settings files have been distributed to everyone that would be using this tool. It's up to you. And last but not least, there's email notifications to set it up so when jobs are done, you get a notification, which is nice. That's super helpful, especially at deadline time and you're chomping at the bit to know when a certain project is done so you can turn around and look at it real quick and run it again if you need to. Alrighty. And I believe that was everything I wanted to talk about today. So, where did it go? Oh, there was a couple of things that I wanted to point out real quick. If you're interested in learning more about the tool or want to get your hands on it, if you don't already have it, go to our website, ctcsoftware.com. Go to BIM Badge Suite here from our products page. Here we've got a little bit more information about each of the tools contained within the suite, including Plotter Exporter, and a little quick intro videos on some of these, and a little bit more information, access to the trials. And but then that can also bring you to our YouTube channel if you hit the demo videos, which will bring you to our channel for that tool and for that suite, or you can just go to our YouTube channel. Go to YouTube and just search CTC Software, and we've got everything up here. This video will be up there, intros to the collective suites or each individual tools. It's all here, and every single video that we've ever recorded that's current is up here, and even some that aren't terribly current but are still super important and powerful. They're all here. All right. So that takes care of it today. I want to thank you all for joining me. I appreciate your time. Appreciate seeing you guys every week. And look forward to seeing you guys next week.